Most of us know what stress is, and most of us know what inflammation is. But have we ever thought that stress may be making inflammation worse, and inflammation may be making stress worse? Is there a link? In today's episode, I'm going to go into detail about inflammation on its own, stress on its own. Then I'm going to talk about the link and answer the question if one or the other make each other worse. And then to end it up like I always do, I'll give you 3 tips to ensure that you can live an optimal life. Let's get into it. It's Mondays with Mihaela. That's right, me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love, and appreciate your support. If this is your first time on the channel, my name is Mihaela. I'm a qualified naturopath, absolutely passionate about all things health, business, and overall success. And Mondays with Mihaela are made to provide you with simple, savvy, and sustainable health hacks to optimize your health. And today I want to be talking about stress and inflammation, and in particular, the link between the two. I mean, we have all heard about stress before, about what it does to the body and so forth, and we have all heard about inflammation before and what it does to the body and so forth. But have we heard about anyone talk about the two intertwined and linked together? Are they intertwined? Do they make each other worse? Do they make each other better? Is there a link? That's exactly what I'm going to be talking about in today's episode. But to start off, let's get into the nitty-gritty and let's talk a little bit about stress. I know I talk about it and I've spoken about it so many times, but to get this episode going, let's discuss stress in just a little bit of detail so we get the episode moving forward. Okay, so what is stress? What a broad question. It could be answered in so many ways. Essentially, stress is a state of a threatened homeostasis, which means homeostasis, we want to be in homeostasis, which is everything's balanced, everything's leveled and working well. So stress is a state of threatened homeostasis provoked by a physiological, environmental, or psychological stressor with a rapid development of science, technology, as well as economy and a strong social competition. So this is what stress is making it worse. Stressful events engender multiple neurochemical, neurotransmitter, and hormonal alterations by mainly activating the sympathetic nervous system, which is the go, fight, run, go system, and the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Release cortisol, which suppresses non-essential functions such as your immune system, hint, hint, and digestion and reproductive system. The hormone also fuels the production of glucose or blood sugar, boosting energy to the larger muscles such as your legs, so you are able to run away from that kangaroo that is chasing you, but also while inhibiting insulin production, so you're no longer making insulin production, and narrowing the arteries, making them a lot narrower than they usually would be, which forces the blood to pump harder to aid a stress response, which can result to hypertension. Another hormone, adrenaline, is also released, which tells the body to increase heart and respiratory rate, to extend airways, to push more oxygen to the muscles, so we are faster, we're more active, more proactive. Your body also makes glycogen available to power your muscles through. In addition, stress decreases lymphocytes, white blood cells that are part of the immune system, which are vital for our immune system to function as it should be, putting you at risk of viruses, diseases, bacteria, infections. The fight or flight response, which is activated when we are stressed, itself is meant to be short term and it's meant to be adaptable. So it's meant to just occur and then it's meant to go away. It's not meant to be chronic, which is what's happening at the moment out there. which makes sense because your body goes into this mode and all of this stuff is happening that I've spoken about for you to run away, for you to make a decision and save yourself. Which means your immune system is shut down because at the moment you don't need it, you will need it later on. If you think of fight or flight as triggered by something like a tiger, but I say kangaroo chasing you, your body devotes energy and resources for you to run away, not to digest. That's one of the last things it will be focusing on is digestion. Or sending immune responses to deal with an infection or so forth. It's when you're in that state chronically, that is a cascade of inflammatory response setup. This is where inflammation occurs. It is maladaptive response to stress that over time perpetuates itself and becomes impregnable in chronic health conditions. Stress is a common, this is so interesting that I thought I'll share with you, is stress is the common risk factor of 75 to 90% of diseases. Let me say that again. Stress is the common risk factor of 75 to 90% of diseases, including cardiovascular disease, which includes hypertension and atherosclerosis, metabolic disease, which includes diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver, psychotic and neurodegenerative diseases such as depression, Alzheimer's disease, anxiety, Parkinson's disease, even cancer. So stress is at the bottom of it all. Okay, it's absolutely crazy. But then, so now we know a little bit about what stress is and what happens to our body when we're stressed. What is inflammation? What is inflammation? Inflammation is the body's response to threat, which is similar to stress. So this threat can be bacteria, viruses, cancer, anything along those lines. Even a psychological or emotional stressor can be a threat for inflammation. In response, the immune system, yes, our beautiful immune system, sends out an army of chemicals, called pro-inflammatory cytokines, and these attack the invaders. So it's kind of like an actual army. They go there and they attack the invaders. That is exactly what happens in our immune system, in our body. So pro-inflammatory cytokines usually do their job and then they disappear. They do what they got to do, get rid of the invaders, and then goodbye, see you later. But when stress is chronic, they are upregulated in your system, which means they stay there, they keep fighting. And what we meant by stress was bacteria, viruses, emotional, physical, even cancer, those types of stresses. In recent years, our knowledge of the inflammation role is enlarged. We know so much more than we used to know. Inflammatory pathways have been recognized as a pivotal molecular basis in the pathogenesis of many chronic diseases. Okay, so what that means is that we know a lot more now and understand that inflammation is at the base of many diseases. And it also shows that excessive inflammation plays a critical role in the progress or onset of stress-related diseases. There has been a growing number of evidence supporting that inflammatory response constitutes the common soil for multifactorial diseases, including cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, psychotic, neurodegenerative disease, and cancers. So there is similar what I've just said about what I spoke about stress. The similar thing is that we're talking about inflammation. Okay, so there is a link. Okay, there seems to be a link between stress and inflammation. A research team led by Carnegie Mellon University's Sheldon Cohen has found that chronic psychological stress is associated with the body losing its ability to regulate the inflammatory response. Published in the Proceedings of National Academy of Science, the research shows for the first time that the effects of psychological stress on the body's ability to regulate inflammation can promote the development and progression of disease. This is absolutely huge. So this paper here, this research, shows to us clearly that there is a link between inflammation and stress, and that if you are stressed, it upregulates the body's inflammatory processes. And many diseases that are caused or known to be caused by stress are also now known to be caused by inflammation. So now the question that we all want answers is, does stress make inflammation worse? Okay, a large body of evidence indicates that stress can activate inflammatory responses in the brain as well as cerebrally. There exists communication between the neuroendocrine and immune system. The brain and the immune system, there is a link. They're showing us a link. Stress activates the HPA axis through the hypothalamic secretion of CRH, which normally suppresses immune responses through release of GC, which is glucocorticoids, from the adrenals. Glucocorticoids are one of the major stress hormones released during stress response that are well known for their immunosuppressive and anti-inflammatory properties. Studies during the 1970s and 80s revealed that these GC inhibits lymphocyte proliferation and cytotoxicity. Further, they reduce the expression of severe pro-inflammatory cytokines and enhance the expression of anti-inflammatory cytokines. So what this is saying is, we are stressed, we increase our glucocorticoids such as cortisol. What happens is then these release a lot more pro-inflammatory, causing more inflammation, and release less anti-inflammatory, removing inflammation. Okay, so this is where the stress link is. The interaction of the immune system and HPA axis from the endocrine negative feedback loops. However, when cytokines is overstimulated in some diseases, these negative feedback loops could be weakened by reduced cytoplasmic GC receptors levels and decreased expression of GR-driven anti-inflammatory genes, thus leading the GC's low responsiveness. Both pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory mechanisms depends on the type of intensity of the stressor. So this is saying that the GCs, which includes cortisol, can be anti and pro-inflammatory, but this just depends on the stressor and also the intensity of it. So a little bit of stress can actually assist us to be anti-inflammatory. However, a large number of stress can be very pro-inflammatory and cause a lot of inflammation in our body. So acute stresses seem to enhance immune function, whereas chronic stresses are suppressive. Intense stresses overactivate the immune system, leading to an imbalance of inflammation and anti-inflammation. So this is where it is not good to be in a chronic state of inflammation. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a table which is available here. Now, this table is very interesting because it talks about, as you can see, the stress substance and the stress-related disease, and then there's also reference lists there. So as we can see, the stressor can be vasopressin, which can cause hypertension. And then IL-6, which is a cytokine, can cause atherosclerosis. Another one is GC, which causes insulin resistance. And then we can talk about IL-6 again, which is a huge cytokine, which causes a number of inflammatory processes in our body. And here it causes depression, can be linked to depression. Another one, again, IL-6, lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, and so forth. So here you can see that these stresses cause inflammatory markers to go up, causing inflammation, which can result to disease. Here's another little graph where we can see at the top we have stress. This stress can be physiological, material, psychological, and so forth. In this picture, we can see that these stresses can cause neuroinflammation, which can in turn result in insulin resistance, non-alcoholic fatty liver, cardiovascular disease, immune system dysfunction, and liver issues can be caused from these stresses, which in turn also causes inflammation. And then I've got this beautiful other graph right here, So what it talks about here is you can see the plant, right? And at the bottom of the plant is the chronic low-grade inflammation. So this chronic low-grade inflammation can be the cause, as you can see coming up, of cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, neurodegenerative disorders, and cancers. And we can see stresses such as aging and lifestyle can impact these. So it can grow. And so essentially what this is saying is, you plant the seed of cancer, and what makes it grow is your lifestyle, is aging. But then look at the watering can. What's in the watering can? It is stress. This stress causes the plant of cardiovascular disease, of cancer to grow, and therefore you're more likely to be diagnosed with these diseases, with these disorders. So that's just a little bit of an insight in regards to, yes, stress does cause inflammation. Yes, inflammation causes disease. So we need to manage these. But I wanted to look into actual disease states and if there is a link between inflammation and stress and how they impact actual disease states. And I'm going to start with depression, okay? So pro-inflammatory cytokines, those chemicals messages released in response to physical or psychological stress, can trigger depressive symptoms in some people, leading to lower mood, fatigue, and a lack of normal enjoyment of life. Inflammation can lead to symptoms that look like depression, and in people who already have depression, inflammation can make these symptoms worse. In a study published in January 2018 in the Journal of Biological Psychiatry, researchers subject mice to stressful conditions while monitoring signs of brain immune cell activation. In this study, anxiety and depression-like activity was associated with activation of the immune cells. This suggests that exposure to stress triggered immune cells in the brain, leading to the rewiring of neurocircuits and setting off mood symptoms. There is considerable evidence that psychological stress can activate the inflammatory response. So higher stress, higher inflammation. Different types of stresses are capable of increasing in inflammatory activity in a manner that promotes depressive symptoms. And so this is saying that the higher your stress is, the higher your inflammation is, the more likely you are to get such things as depression. So now, cardiovascular disease, an amped up sympathetic nervous system, which is a result of high stress. So that's the result of high stress, because you're in a sympathetic mode if you're fight and flight, if you're running away from that kangaroo and you're just stressed out. So what this does is it constricts the blood vessels, which forces your heart to work harder and raise blood pressure. Inflammation is at its core development of atherosclerosis, a precursor to heart disease. In addition, those who are chronically stressed tend to make unhealthy choices such as smoking, not exercising, not eating well, which contribute to a worse state of cardiovascular disease. So there's the link again. The higher your stress, the more inflammation is caused, the more risk of getting cardiovascular disease. Now let's talk about the gut, which is inflammatory bowel disease. It's an umbrella term for inflammation-linked conditions that affect the gastrointestinal system, including Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Both are caused by stress, which affects the body's normal secretion of digestive enzymes and can interfere with how you digest your food, absorb nutrients, and remove the wastes out of your body. In recent years, researchers have linked a peptide in the brain gut called corticotropin factor, which is CRF, which is activated when you're stressed, to proper colonic function. So for you to remove the waste out of your body. A report published in January 2018 in the Journal of Clinical Medicine stated that CRF plays a major role in bowel function and may explain the link between stress and irritable bowel syndrome. So there you have it. The more stressed you are, the more inflamed you are, the more likely you are to result in having inflammatory bowel disease such as Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. So now let's talk about rheumatoid arthritis, another one I wanted to mention, another condition that is linked to inflammation. So it's understood that inflammation is at the base of rheumatoid arthritis, a disease where the body attacks itself, the joints and the tissues, causing stiffness and pain. Over time, inflammation can damage the joints and the bones, causing abnormalities. So it is also caused by the cytokines, chemicals that are released by stress. Okay, so if you're stressed, you release more of these chemicals, more cytokines, and more inflammation in your body. It might also be the case that inflammation associated with rheumatoid arthritis can lead to other medical issues such as heart attack, stroke, and even cancers, according to a research study in January 2016 in the journal of Arthritis Research and Therapy. Researchers concluded that the inflammation caused by rheumatoid arthritis plus further inflammation caused by rheumatoid arthritis may be the source of it. So this is saying that the more stressed we are, the more inflammation we have, again, the more likely we are to have rheumatoid arthritis. So there you have it. I spoke about what inflammation is, what stress is, the link between inflammation and stress, and then I spoke about 4 diseases, 4 chronic states that impact our body, which are seen to be linked to both stress and inflammation. So we can say here, by looking at this and knowing how our body functions, that the more stressed we are, the more we are in a sympathetic nervous system mode, the more cytokines we release, the more inflammation we cause in our body. And then again, the more inflamed we are, the more stressed we are. And this is what happens in our body. And then the result is like that tree that you saw, the result is the cause of disease. Not as beautiful as the trees, but essentially just so you can see a metaphor of how it grows. So we've got the inflammation at the bottom, the disease is the tree, and then the sun is the genetics, I think it was, and then your lifestyle is the rain, and then you've got the watering can, which is the stress. So the more stress you have, the more the more the inflammation is gonna rise, and the more the disease is going to grow. So I know what you're thinking now. What do I do? Okay, so 3 little things that you're able to implement in your life right now to assist you to reduce your inflammation and reduce your stress. Number 1 is yoga. Similar results have been linked. So with yoga is just absolutely amazing because similar results have been linked to the regular practice of yoga, which is in a study published in January 2017 in the Journal of Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity, was found to lower levels of cortisol and decrease inflammation. Both of them lower cortisol, which lowers your stress, and lowers inflammation. So yoga is the way to go. Find a yoga teacher that you link with, that you connect with, and try and do yoga on a regular basis. Number 2 is be more social. Reconnect with your loved ones. Reconnect with your tribe. Reconnect with your community. Be social. Be out there. Find like-minded individuals, because it's been proven that when you are social and when you're connected on that level with individuals that are vibing on your level, your stresses go down. You go into a parasympathetic mode where you're relaxed, you're feeling, you're vibing. It's kind of like you're in a flow state. And this has been proven to highly be beneficial for individuals who are stressed, which then in turn also helps out individuals who are inflamed. Number 3 is learn to love stress. Okay, it sounds really weird after talking to you about how stress is so-called bad for us. I'm telling you now to love stress. What does that mean? Well, I want you to understand and know what stress is. I want you to understand what stress does to your body, and then I want you to understand how you are able to be in a parasympathetic mode and be able to acknowledge the stress and let it go. Understand that stress assists us. Stress helps us to an extent. However, also stress hinders us to an extent too. So understand the balance. Understand when stress is beneficial for you. Understand when stress is not good for you, and when that stress is going to cause the inflammation, which is going to grow that disease within your body, which is not something that we want. So there you have it, nice and simple. Yoga, be more social, and understand stress. And you can do this every day. Go meet up with a friend, with a colleague. do a yoga practice together. How beneficial is that? And then talk to each other. Talk about the stresses that you have, the stresses that the other individual has, and talk through it and understand that stress may be beneficial at some aspects in your life. But once it turns into over that line and once it fills up your cup way too much, you got to remove it and release it. So there you have it. Yes, there is a link between stress and inflammation and stress, and that it makes it worse. So manage your stress so your inflammation doesn't go out of control and cause disease. That is it for today. That is an episode today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to know more information, follow me on Instagram at mihaela.raguse. I put up so much more information out there. Keep in touch with my other episodes coming out. Until then, do what you do best. Love, like, share, rate, review. Until next Monday, love you.